So if you want something to be a given and certainty in your life, choose your self-concept now. Hey friends, welcome back to this channel. My name is Fazila Bijo, and this is where we get to learn about inner work mastery. In this week's episode, I will be taking you through the first chapter of Out of This World, which is thinking fourth dimensionally. But thinking fourth dimensionally is about the application and how to use your wonderful imagination. I will also touch on what it means in terms of why the change of the future is also a change of your self-concept, something that Neville talks a lot about in terms of his teachings. So here's the question: are we able to alter our future? I want to show you why it's possible. So a change in attitude is what is required in terms of changing our future. This is something that Neville says, man's future is remarkably flexible. Now, if you wanted flexibility in your body, you would practice yoga, Pilates, or any type of discipline that's going to help you to loosen and strengthen your muscles. We use our wonderful human imagination. Thinking fourth dimensionally means that your future is actually dependent on, and it's determined by, your attitudes rather than the actions you take. And I'll come back to why this is so important. A man's future is remarkably flexible. You may not think so at first, but as we progress through the slides and as you get familiar with Neville's teachings, you will understand why he says imagination creates your reality and consciousness creates your reality. So the actions man takes and the experiences he has are because of what he believes to be true about himself. Now, his attitudes determines his experiences. If he wants a different experience, he should actually be looking at changing his attitude. Now, the attitude of the concept of the self, if that was different, he would have different experiences. He would be choosing different experiences. But because of how his self-concept is, because of what his attitudes are about himself, it is the only way that he can actually act and be creating his reality. They are very significant in terms of the effects they produce. Therefore, we should revise. Therefore, we should be looking at what assumptions do I have about a particular thing that is going on in my life, so that we can recognize. So the assumptions that man has, what he has decided to be true for himself, is actually quite significant because of the effect it produces. Therefore, when we look at assumptions, we must realize there is tremendous creative power. When we look at the attitudes we hold, realize when that attitude becomes an assumption and that assumption then becomes a reality in your life. Assumptions, when persisted, when we continue with them, when we are consistent with thinking feelingly with those assumptions, they become hardened into fact. They become a reality in our life. So in terms of a change of self-concept, if man wanted to change his future, he changes his self-concept. He changes what he believes to be true for himself. For example, someone may think of themselves as wealthy, and he believes he is wealthy, and therefore he has the wealth that shows up in his life. Based on his self-concept, he has chosen to have an attitude of wealth. If someone is overweight and they see themselves as carrying excess weight all the time, they produce a self-concept that says, I am overweight. And then that becomes something that is a given for them. That's what we mean when we say assumptions harden into fact. It becomes a programmed reality, and that programmed reality, because of how the imagination works and how the subconscious works, you can find those in my other videos, is how his future is being created. So if we were to change our future for where you may be right now, if you want to change the future that you think you want to have, if you want to change something that is not going well in your life, you make the change now. Because when you change your attitude in terms of what you believe, you will change your future. Self-concept, it looks at, how do I think about myself? Here, if the person sees themselves as being strong, independent, confident, that in turn will create the future that aligns with that. And therefore, if we want to have a future in which we are strong and confident, we must already see ourselves as that. So I'll say it again. A person's self-concept has the effect of changing the future. And to change the future experiences, so where you are right now, when you decide you want to be self-confident, if you are not self-confident, for example, you will already change the future because you are changing your self-concept now. So it works both ways. But you get to choose, because the future, although it is prepared in detail in advance, it has several outcomes. Now, depending on what self-concept, what is your attitude, and based on the attitude you make choices, and then in terms of those choices you have a belief about an outcome, and then as you believe in the outcome, it becomes reality. And we have this choice at every moment in our life. We are always able to choose from several futures that may be ahead of us. These all exist in terms of a potential based on our attitudes. But when we decide, when we choose that attitude, when we decide, I would love to have a job where I will travel, and I want to be a journalist, and I want to go to exotic destinations, from seeing it as real now, you are able to then start to become the person who has all of that. So this is what it means in terms of your self-concept will create a future reality for you. If you want something to be a given and certainty in your life, choose your self-concept now. Because what Neville tells us is there is a better way. Now, many people, in terms of man's natural focus, they have a focus through their senses. They will purely look at, what do I see here? What am I observing? And their senses tell them that the past and future are purely imaginary. All I can see is now. And it's not about living in the now. It is about only seeing the present as being in existence. They are also very much, it's based, when we live our life based on our senses, it is very mental, it is more thinking biased and subjective, based only on what we can observe. And what we know even about quantum physics is the observer, by observing that situation or the issue or the event, the observer changes the event because of who they are and what attitudes they have and what filters they that exist within them. Now, when we look at utilizing our imagination, and we know that consciousness creates reality, this is very much a spiritual focus. It's not spiritual in the sense of woo-woo, but this is spiritual in terms of expanding your view. It is based on, what do you desire? And I'm going to be talking about desires and what you can do as well. Is the spiritual focus is very much based on being able to see across time. Events are seen as distinct and they are seen as separate. So anything that you may have experienced in your past, and by the way, altering our future, we can go into the past and change it, and I've spoken about how we can change the future. So in that way as well, if you have had a self-concept, an attitude of and belief about yourself in the past that you did not like, you can change that in the now. And therefore, the spiritual focus sees that the past and future are part of the present. They make up the whole of the reality that we currently look at. And the attention is directed objectively where you know you can create your reality. Now, the language of desire. This is quite an important thing to become aware of, is that desire is the driving force of action. Now, in order for you to take some kind of action, you must know what you desire. So the question is, what do you want? What do you want for your life? Not just making a wish. What do you truly desire? Because we need to realize with this driving force of action, that we could not move a single finger unless we had the desire to move it. Now, we are all driven by desires that dominate our mind. We follow those desires that dominate our mind at that moment, and therefore those desires determine the course of actions that we will take and ultimately shaping our lives, because we are forever creating our lives. Now, I want you to also realize desires are a state of consciousness that seeks embodiment. It seeks to come into being, and you are given your desires from your human imagination. You are given your desires from consciousness. It is an awareness that we become aware that that desire is something I do not have right now, or I need to make my life more enjoyable. And therefore, we are able to have anything that we desire. The only limitation is what you are placing on it. You can have all of your desires when you become clear of what it is that you want. So, for example, when we want to break a habit, we can do so because our desire to break that habit is greater than our desire to continue in that habit. So let's take someone who wants to give up smoking. They would see themselves as a non-smoker if they were to change the self-concept, and that desire to change self-concept is what will help them overcome the habit of smoking. So even with where we have habits and beliefs, the habit or the belief for what we truly desire helps us to overcome that which is currently in place. So again, we can change the past and we can change the future. So our desires which drive us to action are those that hold our attention. We'll see how this plays out. I just want to bring something into focus here, which is there's absolutely no unselfish desire. You can have anything you want. It is only because of your judgment in terms of having the kind of things that you'd love to have, whatever they might be, that you hold yourself back. So when you are looking at what do I want, be very, very clear and listen and become familiar with what it is that you desire. Now, desires will always have some personal gain. It means you're going to have something that you get out of it. Because the greater the personal gain is, or the anticipated gain, the more intense the desire. So there has to be a level of, I truly want this, in order to materialize and manifest what it is you desire. Because no gain, no desire, and no action. So we won't take an action if we do not see that we will gain something out of it. And when we work with our desires, it is about seeing the invisible. And this is where we now start to look at this expansion in terms of our awareness, our consciousness, our spirituality. What we do is we have concentrated our focus. We concentrate our thoughts, we concentrated our feelings. We must have that strong feeling of what it is we desire. You feel that you already have your desire. You will then go into a quiet space. You persist in the practice of detaching the mind from the senses. So the mind is no longer looking at what it is taking in from what it sees, what it hears, how it is observing what's out in the physical world. You drop into the space, and you now give your mind in your imagination. You now focus your attention on the desire. So now we have a scene. For example, say someone is wanting to manifest a job. What they would do is see themselves in a situation where they're being congratulated on a new job. They may see the contract that they've signed. So whatever works for you, whether it is visual or you hear someone say something to you, it is absolutely fine. Do what works for you. When you focus your attention on what you wish to manifest, you will see the scene. You drop in, close your eyes, go into a space of stillness. You immobilize the body, must be still, but your imagination is now active. In your mind's eye, you may see a scene of you are walking in, and this feeling of being in a new job, and you are meeting new people, and they're saying welcome, and you have the sense of, wow, this is so great. And that's what you need to be seeing in your imaginal scene. So when you become disciplined in withdrawing from the senses, and you start to mentally feel and sense that your desire is in your reality, until it feels real and it feels natural. So for example, on the one hand, we have someone here who may be thinking about buying a car. They're dreaming of buying a car. And here, someone may be thinking about getting married. When you close your eyes, you are going to penetrate beyond the world of sense, and you're going to see that which was invisible. You are making it visible first in your imagination, and then it lands in your reality. So one of the things I want to point out here is you should always participate in the scene. So in the previous scene, the person is watching themselves driving or watching themselves getting married. When you are participating in the scene, you would see the road ahead of you. You would see your hands on the steering wheel. The same for when you're getting married. You would look down and see your dress, or you look at the ring being put on your finger. So I just want to remind you, to desire a state is to have it, because you now know that when there is a strong desire with a personal gain, that something you wish to have in your reality, where you thought you were lacking, and you now have it, because once you have fully assumed the feeling of your wish fulfilled, your four-dimensional self, this is the higher self, God, your creator, whatever you want to call it, will find ways to make your desires a reality. Methods will become available to you for its realization. So please do not look for how, do not ask how, but look for what it is that you would love to achieve. Is it traveling? Is it money? Is it getting married? Whatever that may be, it starts with your desire. You must know what it is you want, because you have been given a desire by imagination, by God, by consciousness. It is already yours. Now creation is finished. Remember, we talked about several futures are available. That's what it means. In a particular timeline, you are already married, because you took decisions, you made choices that took you to the path of getting married. So when you change your self-concept, when you see yourself, when you have the attitude, I am that already, in your imagination, you focus your attention and become the person who already has that desire, then it is done. I trust that you got valuable information and some practices out of today's video, so that you may become the one who can alter their future. And when you alter your future, remember, you are changing and shifting in your identity and your self-concept. And knowing that now, in terms of your desire and in terms of imagination, think and imagine only the best for yourself.